This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast do not reflect the opinions of the parent network or any of its other entities. They might not even reflect the opinions of the podcast host. The truth is out there. Here, we're just talking about things. Do your own research.
The jack of hearts will break me. Makes me feel like Judas, baby. Does he ever look through your mind?
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Blurred Lines. We've got a really interesting show today. We're talking cryptids, folks. The things that go bump in the night, but they go bump in the night generally outside, But we'll get to that. First of all, I want to introduce my co-host today, and that would be Evolution. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Glad to be back and be a part of the show here. Just looking forward to another exciting episode.
Yeah, another exciting episode of you sitting here go, what bullshit is this? You know what, though? This will be a good one. The thing is, I know where I land on this stuff, but more so I'm interested where you land on these things. But before we get to that, I want to give a shout out to my sponsors. First of all, Black Label Chronometers. Black Label Chronometers is run by Ryan Babb. Now, what Black Label Chronometers does is, if you can see the half sunshined up clock behind me, what Ryan will do is he takes classic albums and he will make custom clocks for you. And he does a beautiful job of it. And what he will do is he also will tailor the clock to, or not tailor the clock, but tailor the album to what you do. So he picked a comedy album for me, right? Because I've done stand-up for almost 30 years. And he just does a fantastic job. And he's done things for bands around the world, chefs, record stores. I mean, he has a wide variety of people that he's done clocks for. So check him out, Black Label Chronometers, on Facebook and online, and hit him up. And if you use the code SHANK15, that's SHANK15, he will give you a wicked good discount. All right. Also want to let you guys check out myvibe.com. Now, what is myvibe? That's myvyv.com. Well, basically, I can tell you, when I was an EMT, to wake people up out of nearly comatose states, we had these things called smelling salts. You crack them open and put them under the person's nose, and they would sit up like Dracula, right? Well, my vibe isn't as violent. As a matter of fact, they have some nice scents and things that they provide. But what it does is it's actually a pick me up in the middle of the day. So if you have like the 2 o'clock, at work, you're in your cubicle and you're just, like the song every day is exactly the same as by Nine Inch Nails is playing in your head and you just don't want to be there. Crack a My Vibe. It'll wake you up. You'll feel better. It'll push you through to the end of the day. And also there, if you use the code SHANK15, SHANK15, that will give you a pretty sweet discount. So myvibe.com and Black Label Chronometers. And a shout out to my boys and gals at msh.com. That's meetsohorny.com. They do not sponsor me. It's just the guys, the president's a very dear friend of mine, and they have some of the best spices in the country. Don't believe me? Check them out. All right. Now, got all that out of the way. Let's talk cryptids. All right. Evolution. What is your knowledge of cryptids? When I say cryptids, what does that make you think of?
Creepy things that are out there that I guess not everybody sees, but some people see. It's kind of like a myth, or like the, what do you call that, Loch Ness monster type of deal, Bigfoot, things of that nature.
Spot on, my friend. Spot on. Cryptids are the, as I was saying earlier, things that go bump in the night, but they are more based outside. Now, there are all kinds of cryptids, inside, outside, in planes. I mean, you had, there was a cryptid mixture in the sky called a Foo Fighter, which is actually what the band was named after. The pilots during World War II and the Korean War would see these dancing orbs that would fly around their planes, and they called them Foo Fighters. You know, and some people would attribute those to gremlins. Did you ever see the very famous, as far as in William Shatner fandom, his episode on Twilight Zone?
No, I did not. But when you said that, it made me think about that. There's an airplane movie where there's uh, I don't know. I want to say Alfred Hitchcock, but I'm not sure if it was Alfred Hitchcock. But it was like this monster on the wing, and the person was looking out the window.
Yeah, that was Shatner in Twilight Zone, unless they did a a remake of it. But yeah, he's doing there's something on the wing, you know, that
yeah.
he would open the thing and there was a gremlin out there, you know, and these creatures. I mean, they try to make them all cute in that 1980s movie. It was either Spielberg or Zemeckis that did it as the director of it, which also had Corey Feldman in it. Oddly enough, a lot of people don't remember that, but I digress. Anyway, no, they weren't the cute little mogwai. They were, for some pilots during the wars, a very real problem, where they would have their problems with their planes before and during flight, where they would swear that these creatures were tearing their planes apart or causing mischief. Yeah.
Wow.
And so that story where, you know, Shatner would open up the shade and see the thing out there, you know, laughing maniacally and tearing pieces of the wing off, and then he's losing his mind on the flight, because flying's scary enough without a monster, right?
Absolutely. Especially when you get a lot of turbulence.
Yeah. So now you got something on the wing tearing it apart, and he's losing his shit. But the thing that was really scary is at the end of that, because nobody believed him, and they landed, and the last shot pans over the plane to the wing, and right where that monster was tearing the shit out of it, the wing is all torn apart. That's the very last shot. That, I mean, talk about, I'm getting chills. All right.
You're right.
It's crazy. Yeah. So I think, you know, I'm somewhere in between where I think cryptids might be a thing where we use mythological things to explain things we don't understand, right? You know, it's just like we looked at the sun, and the sun would disappear every night. Some of the mythologies came from that. But I also know that people have experienced things, and there's more in this world that we don't understand than we do understand. My first question, diving into the topic, aside from do you know what cryptids are, is, have you personally or somebody close to you ever had an experience where, you know, like maybe your grandpa or something, where it's like, oh yeah, I met the Rougarou down in Louisiana, you know, or something like that?
Nothing really jumps out to that magnitude. I think my upbringing was more of, if you don't see it, you don't believe it, you know. So if we heard anyone talking about cryptids or whatever, we just kind of let it bounce off, you know. It just really didn't affect us directly. If it didn't affect us directly, then we just, you know, kind of went our own direction.
That is fair. Not my monkeys, not my circus, right?
Right. Right.
It's like the thing's banging on your window, and you're just like, I'm not trying to hear that. Open up, evolution.
I'm gonna count that one as a whispering wind, a high volume wind outside. I'm not gonna investigate. I'm just gonna let it pass.
Volume wind. It's saying your name. It's a really good wind.
Yeah, right. Like, okay, I'm just gonna go back in the other room and turn the music up loud.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, and the thing is too, like I know folks that are like that as well. And I'm
Mhm.
not saying it's good or bad. It's just a matter of that. It's not that it is a belief or it isn't a belief. It's just like, you know what, that's too much. That is too
Yeah.
much to want to deal with, and I've
Mhm.
got my own issues. And if I start letting that into my consciousness, it's going to unlock all kinds of stuff. So that's fair, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I'm gonna sit here and try to make a believer out of you.
Okay.
So,
Or it could spark something that I forgot about, and then we can get
yeah,
into it.
it's quite possible, man.
Mhm.
So all right, I'm gonna start off with talking about some of the cryptids that are out there, and then I'm gonna share some of my stories, and maybe in the midst of this, like you said, possibly spark something.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the more recent ones that started in 2019. Now I'm starting with some highly dubious ones
Hmm.
because anything that is more recent, I kind of have an issue with. Um, just simply because there's just no long term anything with it, and people are doing all kinds of stuff to get internet famous now.
Hmm.
But Bigfoot, if we go for I mean, she is the big granddaddy grandmother of the cryptid stories, right next to Loch
Right.
Ness.
Hmm.
And you have stories from all over the world that predate our ability to communicate with one another,
Hmm.
but you have tales of Bigfoot like creatures, over in Mongolia, which Mongolian sandworms, another one that's one of the ones that creeps me out, but that we'll get there.
Uh-huh.
Um, and over here, Native Americans, I mean, they had centuries of stories about Bigfoot type creatures. All
Hmm.
right, before European settlers ever got here, right? I
Right.
mean, after they crossed the land bridge, supposedly from Russia when we were still linked up there, and filtered up from South America, um, it we had these stories. And to me, that's like, there's got to be something there if these cultures have these stories from all over the world, but
Hmm.
they had no ability to swap the information. So how do you
Right.
account for that, right?
Right.
Um,
Uh, had to be some type of truth.
I mean, it seems like it, doesn't it?
Hmm. I mean, you got people in some cases they don't even speak the same languages, but they always have some type of pictorial that is pretty much very accurate to the description of what others seen in other areas. So yeah, that's the thing that I'm curious about because how could they communicate if they don't speak the same language, but they end up describing the exact same creature.
Yeah. It's I'm not a fan of coincidences. I never have been. I honestly don't believe in them.
Hmm.
I think things happen because they are meant to, or there is solid reasoning behind it, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, the Was it Ra, right? The bird-faced uh, god from
Hmm.
Egypt.
Hmm.
There are drawings, hieroglyphs of Ra in South America
Hmm.
and in Asia. Now, Asia might make more sense because they were able to migrate, from Egypt, through. I mean, there's some treacherous mountains there, but they could potentially have gotten around, right, to
Hmm.
share that information. But how did they have it in South America,
Right.
right? How did they have those same things down in Australia where nobody could get to?
Hmm.
It makes no sense. And you know, if you want to take a really deep walk down this path, you could say like Ra, the bird-faced god, was a cryptid that walked the earth, with all those depictions. But
Mm-hmm.
we have other things to talk about instead of Egyptian mythology, right?
Okay. Okay.
All right. So here's my first one.
All right.
I'm going to say the name of it, and I want you to tell me what you think this thing is. So 2019,
Mm-hmm.
it is the Tennessee knot deer.
Tennessee not deer. Well,
Right, it's a lot to chew on, isn't it?
yeah. I'm thinking it's not a deer, and I think it
That's
might be
fair.
from. Oh man! Wow. It's probably from Tennessee, or been seen in Tennessee.
As built. Okay, so what? I mean, you're not far off.
Mm,
All right, so what the Tennessee knot deer is it is supposedly so in the area of the Appalachians, right?
mhm,
Which,
mhm.
man, you want to talk about cryptids and like creepy woods, the stuff that happens out there. Like if you could go down a deep dive on TikTok alone and just look up what not to do in Appalachia, you're going to go down a rabbit hole that's going to scare the shit out of you. Like
Wow.
why you don't whistle in the woods, or if you hear your name called, you do not answer back. You do not go out after night. I mean, like videos of creatures approaching houses, and you're just like, what the fuck is that? I mean,
Wow.
the Appalachian Mountains are terrifying, terrifying. But the knot deer, it's almost like uncanny valley.
Hmm.
Which, do you know what uncanny valley is?
Not no.
Okay, so uncanny valley is this, and some people think it was a weird evolutional step, which is terrifying. It's that a creature with a human face, but something is off,
Huh.
where you're just like, that's not human. It's like the new AI things when they're talking, and you're
Uh-huh.
like, that looks real, but there's something else going on, and it just doesn't feel right. That's called the uncanny valley.
Got it.
And yeah, and see what scares people about the uncanny valley is they're saying there's at some point in our evolution as human beings that this came about because there was something that had a human face but was not, which is a
Wow.
terror. Yeah, dude. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So picture uncanny valley, but with a deer. So it
Hmm.
looks like a deer. You're looking at it and you're like, this looks like a deer, but there's something off with it.
Hmm.
And the different versions of this thing. All right, but I'll read the not deers are said to be not to be afraid of humans. Those who encounter them say they have an uneasy feeling that there is an intelligent and emotion about them that furthers the feeling that something is off. The not deer will generally approach humans, and it's because of this that odd movements are noted. Despite encounters feeling off, the creature has only been reported to attack if provoked, such as when encounters try to scare them off. Some accounts of such involve being chased up a tree by the knot deer. The knot deer may walk on its hind legs for a bit, as some animals may do, in order to intimidate or attempts to reach individuals that are chased up trees.
Wow. So apparently there have been people who ran from this nut deer and climbed up trees.
Yep.
Wow.
And the thing straight up stood up like Schwarzenegger in the first Terminator, like when he comes out of that ball of electricity
Uh,
and does the and starts walking towards him on its hind legs. And I have read accounts where it will start on fire. Like there is a rime of fire around the thing.
wow.
Yeah. And I've heard other accounts and read other accounts where it will like show its teeth, and they
Mhm.
are all razor sharp.
Hmm.
So, I mean, is this true? Is it not true? I mean, it might just be silly. It might be what they CWD, which is something they call chronic wasting disease,
Mhm.
and that can deform a deer to the point that you would look at it and go, "Holy," like that's a mutant, So,
Right.
excuse
Right.
me, but who knows? People make stuff up all the time, but at the same time, you just don't know because we live in a big, strange world. So,
Yeah, a big strange world where people drink a lot of things and take a lot of things, and it could make
so
every.
I see what you're saying. So you're just like, yeah, they got into that, got some of that Tennessee mountain shine. That's a not deer. It's me, Jimmy. Shut up, not deer. We know better. You
It's
ain't gonna
on.
get me.
It's on fire. The teeth are razor sharp.
Okay, I like that. All right. So we will move to the next one, and I've picked a few of these from the South just because God love our folks from the South. They just are so adorable. Uh, this next one, I must say the name.
Hmm.
Again, I would like to see what your initial thought is.
Okay.
Uh, the Alabama White Thang. Thang. Thang.
Oh man. Alabama white thing.
What up, White Thang?
I'm trying to come
Yeah.
up with something that can be, I guess, put in that category. And I got nothing. I got nothing.
Dude, brother, I totally understand because when I came across the Alabama White Thang,
Hmm.
um, I had no concept. I'd never heard. I mean, and I've studied occult things my entire life,
Hmm.
and I know a lot about cryptozoology and things of that nature. This
Hmm.
one got outside of my radar, under the radar. No idea.
Huh.
Now this is an interesting one because it's well. I'll read this to you because it is so specific to an area, which to me is it either smacks of local bullshit or something is living somewhere,
Uh-huh.
and it is so regionally specific that it actually lends some credence to it. But here's what it says. It says, deep in the North Alabama woods lurks the creature that many people claim to have seen. The legend of the Alabama White Thing has been a staple of the state's folklore since the early 1900s. So there's some, long-term
Wow.
legacy here. Yeah. Most sightings of the Alabama White Thing occur in a triangle between Morgan, Etowah, and Jefferson counties. People have reported sightings in Walnut Grove, Moody's Chapel, Happy Hollow, and Wheeler Wildlife Refuge, just to name a few. So,
Hmm.
in that, to me, it's just very strange that this thing, right, lands in such specific areas. Now, what this is, and this is where another thing that makes me kind of say, yeah, maybe, maybe not, is that it is another Bigfoot like creature. All
Hmm.
right. It's about 8 to 9 feet tall, white, covered in long white hair. Some people have stated it's more like a lion because it tends to run on 4 feet.
Huh.
But so I don't know, like, when we do the singed eyes things, you and I kind
Uh-huh.
of like will hook onto a thing and say, this bothers me, right?
Right. Right.
The specificity of the area is what gets me with this thing. What do you think about that?
what jumped out at me when you were talking was the triangle shape, um, and I immediately started thinking about the Bermuda Triangle, um, because for some reason, um, when things that are weirdly described or mysterious, that shape is always kind of brought to light. So maybe there is a thing that kind of moves in that area, whatever. In the description of it, a white furry. Uh, I'm thinking about there's a I can't think of the actual name, but some type of mythical creature in the cold.
Yeti.
Yeah, thank you, Yeti. That kind of came to mind as well. But is that a cold environment, or that's in the south? So
It's well,
probably not.
northern Alabama. I mean, it's well. First of all, if you've never been to northern Alabama, it's one of the most beautiful parts of the United States. A lot of people don't know that, but it
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
absolutely just sweeping vistas, pine tree. I mean, it's so gorgeous. And I mean, I've been to Washington State and in Idaho and California and places,
Hmm.
and I still to this day love Northern Alabama above
Wow.
all of them.
Wow.
Um, but that being said, um, Yetis that is like Tibetan, Russian,
Yeah, colder environment.
colder climates. But to sit here and say, well, the Yetis only are in the cold. It's like, oh, really? You've lived with Yetis. You're a Yeti expert, really?
Mhm. Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
no, right? So that's an interesting connection. I didn't even think about that because I was so wrapped up in the name of the thing.
Yeah.
But that the triangle shape too, you're right. Like I mean, circles sometimes are mentioned, like fey circles and
Hmm.
things like that, in occults and mysticism and things, the
Hmm.
fey being another cryptid that's out
Hmm.
there, fairies. But triangle, holy cow, man, you're not kidding.
Yeah.
You meet a triangle, the Alaskan Triangle, lesser known but still existing.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's interesting, but it's just such a specific small area. And that's the other thing too. It's persisted since the early 1900s. It'd be one thing
Yeah.
if it was just some bullshit some kids made up.
Hmm. But yeah, you're talking about longevity there for sure. That's generations. Um, and I'm sure multiple sightings throughout that time, at least.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, so yeah, uh, definitely got some possibilities there. And
Very,
and
yeah.
people don't usually don't live that long either. So if it's a creature, what does it feed on? You know?
That's the thing. And one interesting theory that has been, with Bigfoot's purported to be an interdimensional creature. Like
Mhm.
that's why we have such a hard time nailing it down, right? Is because
Mhm.
it's able to jump between dimensions. And our own scientists have, with CERN and everything, have admitted that, oh yeah, there's other dimensions. There's multiples. So it's not like that part of science doesn't agree with, as far as, the physical makeup of our reality.
Mhm.
But if you had a creature that was in this very specific area, I mean, maybe they get there's a gate there or something. I don't know. I don't, it's just so weird to me that it's like it's counties. It's not even, like the Bermuda Triangle is this massive region, right,
Right. Mhm.
of water. Um, this is counties. This would be like
Right.
if I drove over, from Cass to Elkhart County, and my, my wife would be like, "Now you watch out for the Elkhart White thing." you know? If you go over to Kosciuszko County, you ain't gonna see it, but oh yeah, Elkhart. Okay, so the next one I've got is this is a different one.
Hmm.
All right, because we have had instances in the Southwest and other places around the world where people have either been experimented on and shit's gone
Oh wow.
weird,
Yeah. Hmm.
right? Or families have like lived in a small area and just kind of incestuously stayed within, themselves,
Hmm.
and they have just mutated to the point where it's scary. And you see these movies like The Hills Have Eyes and People Under the Stairs, where it's just like these mutated individuals, are murderous and just scary shit. So
Right.
that's this way. This next one
Hmm.
is weird to me, but
Okay.
I'm gonna give you the name.
Hmm.
See what you say or
All
think.
right.
All right, the melon heads.
Um. Okay. So this one I can probably get close to maybe. Uh, I'm thinking when you mention mutations, people are weird, um, or kind of a little different. Maybe they just wearing like melons on their heads. Or maybe the shape of their head is like a melon. That's what I get from that.
Okay. Well, the first one sounds more like a really bad cult, but no, you nailed it on the second swing. They do have bulbous heads, and this is a strange one because there are three states that it's specific to:
Hmm.
Ohio, Michigan, and Connecticut.
That makes perfect sense. No.
Yeah, of course, the Connecticut connection. God knows all the melon heads out there. So all right. So here's one of the tales that comes with this. It says the melonheads were originally abandoned children that a scientist by the name of Dr. Crow decided to, and this literally has quotes where it says take care of,
Wow.
at his facility in Kirtland, Ohio. Well, the children stayed at the facility. Dr. Crow performed torturous experiments on them.
Hmm.
What got them the name Melonheads was when Dr. Crow injected chemicals into their brains, which caused their craniums to grotesquely grow. And
Wow.
because of this abnormal growth, they developed hydrocephalus, which caused them to become mentally ill. After years of abuse, the Melonheads brutally killed Dr. Crow and burned down his facility.
Wow.
Yes. Wow,
That
indeed.
that's a cruel doctor individual to do kids like that. But wow, I guess he got what he deserved.
Right? Well, if the stories be true.
Hmm.
Um, Now in Michigan, and again, this gets to that weird specificity thing, because
Hmm.
the melonheads of Michigan are said to reside around Felt Mansion, although have been reportedly seen in southern forested areas of Ottawa County. According to one story, they were originally children with hydrocephalus who lived in the insane asylum near Felt Mansion. All right,
Hmm.
and they endured physical emotional abuse, and they were they were released into, like, when the shit shut down, they basically just said here you go and just let them go into the woods, and they became
Wow.
feral mutants.
Huh. That's possible.
Sure.
Uh, Geez. And these are all considered melon heads, right?
Yes.
I'm connecting the dots here, and um, there's some type of mental state uh, connection with them, and probably some. tampering with their systems with some type of medicine or some type of chemical. Haven't seen one myself, but it's possible, right? It's like, hey, I was driving through Ohio and just happened to see one of those melonhead kids.
Yeah, you're going to go to work. You're going to go to work next day, and you're going to see somebody with a slightly roundish head. You're going to be like, melon head.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's a strange one, and the Connecticut story is, roughly the same. Specific county, mental institution, hydrocephalus. But the thing about this one is, and I was discussing this with some of my students a couple weeks ago, that I think this one could potentially be true on some level. Like maybe it happened somewhere, whether it be Connecticut, Ohio, Michigan, doesn't matter, but somewhere regionally in that kind of actually would be like this line for the information to travel. But there could have been some mutated kids or something that were in, asylums, because that's what they did with folks like that back in the day. They didn't know what to do with them.
Right.
And if the place shut down and they didn't have somewhere to go, man, humans have done terrible stuff. They probably just did open the doors and just said, go.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that one makes sense. It's sad, but it seems that one could be not only explained, but probably true.
Yeah. And that's the sad thing. It's unfortunate. Maybe, potentially what happened is they did release them into the woods and people saw them, right? Floating around in the woods, trying to survive. And these stories grew, and, they're not going to survive, especially if this happened back in the early 1900s, they'd be dead by now.
Right.
But still, it's like, the potential that this actually happened is sad.
True.
Make for a great movie.
Yeah. Whether it's scary or just some type of documentary, I think that'd be quite interesting.
Yeah, it would either way. All right. Where are we at time-wise? Okay. All right. We have time for one more, and then we'll get into some stories, and then we'll wrap this up. All right. Okay. Again, here we go with the name. Momo the Monster. It's just a morning of ridiculousness.
Momo the Monster. That's a broad possibility of what it could be. I'm going to take a stab at it and say Momo is some sort of cow figure related to Moo Moo.
Oh, I love it, man. That's great. That's great. I would love to say that you're close, but you're
I'm way off.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the facts are concerned on this, no, it's Momo the Monster is the Missouri Monster, right? Okay. So Momo, Missouri Monster, Momo. And essentially it is a Bigfoot, all right? But it is regionally attached to around your area.
Huh. Interesting.
Like the woods, the fields, all of that stuff. If you were to go out hunting for Momo, like you could go out into the country near where you live and, do some Momo hunting, because it could possibly show up where you're at.
Interesting.
Well, and here's the thing though, that's your area. Have you even heard of it before?
Obviously not, because I was way off. But I mean, I'm not really around wooded areas either, so that could be a factor that plays into why I don't have a knowledge of Momo, the monster.
I think it sounds like a kid's show. So
It does, it does. But the creature is kind of like you said, described like Bigfoot.
yeah, yep, essentially Bigfoot. And there's so many big. I mean, even the Yeti is
Hmm.
Bigfoot with white hair, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
In cold conditions. So it's there's the skunk ape, that I believe is from Florida.
Hmm.
Again, it's just another Bigfoot version. There are so many of them out there that it is a like a mass hysteria where people are just buying into it and seeing it, or it's like, you know what? These things are all over the place and we just have different names for them.
Hmm.
Momo, White Thing, Yeti. Um, you know, it's it's
Bigfoot.
interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
I mean, could it be like a I don't know. I'm being a little bit extreme right now, but maybe just someone who was homeless and just never cut their hair and just got furry over the years and just
it's
survives in the woods.
it's quite possible. And dude, there are diseases where people um will grow body hair like a werewolf,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
There are diseases where people grow like essentially tree bark all over their body in tree
Wow.
like limbs and roots and things. Horns. I mean,
Mm.
there's all kinds of mutations that humans suffer that could account for these things. I'm not going to say one way or the other with those things.
Mhm.
No idea. But I will get into where I experienced some weird shit. I lived on Daly Road in southwestish Michigan,
Mm. Mhm.
and this is out in the country. All right, I lived down a lane that was a quarter of a mile,
Mhm.
and back in the woods. Had a big cornfield on one side of me, and unless you're looking for my gravel driveway, you're just gonna blow right
Mhm.
by the house.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, Now I love that kind of isolation. I love it because I love the
Mhm.
peace.
Mhm.
But with everything, there's a cost. All right. And the outside the back of our house is this big sweeping hill. I had a small pole barn over to the right, and then just woods after the clearing. I mean, just woods, 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 woods.
Mhm.
And we would hear strange things. We would have packs of coyotes come around the house. I remember one time we had a pack come up on us while we were having and this was weird because we had a fire going, but
Mhm.
they were brave and started coming up, and we had to walk into the house backwards. Luckily, I had my gun on me.
No kidding.
But yeah, I mean, there's been some stuff out there, but there was one day where I was home during the day, and it was just me, and I'm just sitting out back, enjoying the peace, enjoying the Mother Nature on the patio,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden, it was like somebody threw a rock at the pole barn,
Mhm.
and the pole barn is probably 25 feet away to give you an idea of distance. Now,
Mhm.
my first thought was, a tree branch snapped off, happens all the time, hit the top of the thing because it's all metal all the way around.
Mhm.
Um, and then a few seconds later, it happened again.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, that's weird because it seemed like it was intentional.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I heard, now I've heard bear growl before. All right. I grew up in wilderness where there were bears. Okay. I have seen bears. I know the sounds that they make. And I saw trees getting pushed this way and that behind the fucking pole barn, moving towards the pole barn.
Oh no.
And I heard some grunting and shit. And I'm not saying these were massive trees. I'm talking, about the size of my forearm type, that had grown up. And I'm just watching this happen. And I'm like, in my brain, I'm sitting there going, nah, this isn't happening. And my brain's trying to justify it with like the different wildlife and things that it could be. We don't have meese down here this far. And if you've ever seen a moose in real life, they're fucking huge. Oh my God, they're massive, but could have moved trees like that. But throw things, no.
Right.
And then something hit the side of the damn pole barn again. And at that point, I took the same track that I do when I've gone on ghost hunts and everything else. I'm just like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm not going to get afraid, and I'm going to tell you, fuck you to your face, right? Like if you're going to get all ghosty up in my face and start being woo and trying to, upset me, well, I'm just going to be like, no. I go and get the shotgun and I walk out there and I crack, boom. And I go, look here, you Yeti motherfucker. And then I hear rustle, and whatever it was left. Okay. Now this sounds crazy on its face. I never told anybody about it. Because even with the folks that I would do ghost hunts and things with, this just seems far-fetched, right? Because you could go, oh, it was a bear or it was this thing. Bear being the most likely considering the area. It's a little south, but they're there. But about a month later, I am out back on the patio, sitting there having a drink. Wife's with me this time. And we're just enjoying the moment. Mother Nature, all of a sudden, crack, something hits the pole barn. And in my head, I'm going, no fucking way. And my wife was like, what's that? And I go, I don't know. Let's wait. And then she and I heard the crashing of trees, like something moving intentionally. And then something hit the side. But once it hit, like whatever was thrown hit the side of the pole barn, I went and got the shotgun immediately and came back out. And I didn't shoot it off this time, right? But I said, and she's like, what is going on? Like, you got the shotgun real quick. What the hell is happening? And I finally told her, I said, look, I didn't tell you about this because I didn't want you freaked out about something that sounds like a fever dream. And then I told her what happened, and it was the exact same thing. Right. But now somebody's with me that saw and heard the same exact thing. So here's what's crazy. She had something happen that she didn't tell me about because yes.
Wow.
And she told, I have stepdaughters. She told her girls to not say anything to me, even though they all saw it, because they thought it sounded too crazy.
Wow.
We had some fires in the woods that the fire department had to come out and put out. And our power was blinking on and off. So when it was blinking on and off, my wife and her kids went outside to see what was going on because we were in such deep woods that they had to do that thing where they cut the path down the trees so the wires, could run. So they go out there, and she said, I swear to you that this happened and the girl saw it too. So it's not just us,
Mm-hmm.
or not just me. She goes, but I saw something in the tree. It looked like a massive, like she said, a lion is the only thing I could describe it as, but it
Really?
wasn't. What's that?
I said, really? It's the same description of
Yeah,
the mobile.
the thing.
Yeah.
And she said, but it was like that uncanny valley thing where she was like, but it wasn't. And I said, you say it was massive? She goes, yes, it was huge. I said, well, that wouldn't be like a bobcat or a cougar,
Mm-hmm.
which, are things that could, I mean, hell, they have panthers down in Florida, for God's sakes. Like
Right.
we have these things in this country.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I mean, you're saying massive. I said, as a opposed to like a house cat. She's like, no, this thing looked like a damn miniature horse. And I was like, oh, fuck. Okay. And she said what this thing was doing, and they watched it, and the tree was like shaking on the limb.
Mm.
And I said, well, maybe it was trying to knock some food out of the tree. She's like, I don't know. She said it just seemed very intentional because she said it was knocking limbs down right on top of the wire. And that's why, things were hitting it and making the electricity get all weird. And then one of the limbs caught fire. And that's why they had to call the fire department down
Wow.
to come down and to put out the fires that, fell down and caught some of the brush on fire. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, it sounded so crazy. And I know it had to be something else. So there are 3 separate things, that 4 separate people witnessed, and no explanation for any of it. That, I mean, you could attach some explanations to it,
Right.
but so hearing those, what are your thoughts? And you could say you're nuts, and I would say probably.
Well, I can't say you're nuts because you weren't the only one that saw it. Your wife actually seen it, but you, your wife, and your stepdaughters actually witnessed the motions. So I'm thinking that there's some accuracy to that. It was definitely something out there multiple times because you all witnessed it at different times. And then she was freaking out and said, don't tell your dad because we might sound crazy. And you were like, I'm not telling her because it might sound crazy. But apparently y'all are not crazy. It's just something was out there.
Yeah, man. And the thing is too, now I just, if some of that shit happens, I'll talk about it. I have no problems because it's, it's like, why not? If you're gonna think I'm crazy, you're gonna think I'm crazy. But then if you're enough to say I don't understand everything about this world, hey, right?
Yeah.
So I've got one more,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can, I'll ask you your final thoughts, and then we'll get out of here.
Okay.
This is okay. So there's a graveyard north on Highway 17 in Elkhart County, leading up into Cass County in Indiana. And one of the folks that we go on ghost hunts with, who I spoke about in part 1 of this series, Tina Marie, who I trust completely when it comes to this stuff. I don't think she has a dishonest bone when it comes to these things.
Mm-hmm.
She said, we'd gone on a hunt. She said, if you guys are willing, she said, there is a graveyard where stuff constantly happens, and there have been cryptid sightings. And we said, okay, we'll happily do it, because why not? So we pull up on this graveyard. Now I'm there with my buddy Pat's there. He's a comic. God rest him. Mike Barnett, the skeptic, was there with us. And a couple other folks, and Tina. Now, I will say the first hour and some change that we were there, nothing really happened. Like we walked around the graveyard, said things, blah, blah, blah. Now we did find out later on the recordings that we heard whispers and voices and all that kind of stuff, but that's for another time.
Okay.
But I was sitting down by these graves, and it's out in the country, right? Old graves, woods, cornfield, woods.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting by this one grave, and I'm just, I have my little recorder. I'm like, hey, if there's anybody here, blah, blah, blah. And Mike starts walking towards me. And again, Mike's the skeptic.
Mm-hmm.
And he's walking towards me, but he's looking beyond me.
Mm-hmm.
And I look up and I see him looking, and I go, dude, what are you looking at? He doesn't say a thing. He just is walking.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike's not one to get scared. Mike, when he was alive, was a massive guy. I mean, I think he was 6'3" or 6'4". And if you took you and me and Jukebox and shoved us all together, we would be as big as Mike was as one. Just big. I mean, forearms the size of pool table legs. This guy was a beast. So no reason to be afraid, right?
Right.
He's walking, just staring. And I finally stand up and I turn around and I look, and my eyes aren't, the best. And I'm, looking and everything. And he just reaches over and puts his massive paw on my shoulder and stops me. And he just like that.
No words, huh?
No words. And I followed, and dude, man, I don't know if you can see him, goosebumps all over the place.
Uh-huh.
I look in and I see eyes looking back. Now, here's the thing. I grew up in the country. I grew up hunting, fishing, running through woods, walking miles of creek, I mean, I was a country boy. I have seen deer. I have seen bear. I have seen bobcat. I've seen all manner of shit out in the wild, right? I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I've been around, and whatever the fuck was looking back at us did not have like a shape of something or eyes that made sense.
Ooh.
And it was enough that it didn't scare Mike, but you could tell he was creeped out by it.
Heck yeah.
And we're just standing there staring, and all of a sudden Tina walks up and she goes, "That's what I was talking about."
Huh.
And it literally just locked eyes with us. And it felt like we were there for 5 minutes. And then it ran this way down, like just behind the tree line, right? But it ran this way and then stopped. So we ran this way and stopped, and again locked eyes with the thing. And it did that back and forth for a bit, and then it fucked off into the woods, and we didn't see it again. But it was just the weirdest. It was the weirdest thing, and no explanation. And we asked Tina, like what she thought, and she's like, "We have no idea. We have been out here." Excuse me. And she's talking about her and her hunting team, Eric and Jason, a couple others. And she said, we've done recordings and everything else. She said, we've never been able to nail it down. It's always like that. It always comes up to the edge of the woods and it like stares us down. And it's always on the edge there, but never can we get close to it, because once it senses, like it runs off. So there you go, man. So what are your thoughts on all of this information?
There's things that we can explain. There's things that we can't explain, of course. Are there cryptids out there? Obviously, there's something out there because it's being cited by different people, and yourself included. Me personally, I have not had any up close and personal issues or sightings, primarily because I'm never usually in the country. But I would say that
and never going now.
if I see eyes looking at me or something throwing rocks and trees moving, I'm gone. I'm nowhere around. That's it. That's enough for me. I'm not sticking around for the final result. I'm just gonna take everybody's word for it at that point. But definitely, I think there are things out there that we can't explain, and they're maybe hiding in plain sight or just coming to the limits of what their boundaries are, if it's a triangle shape or whatever. And then they go back to where they're from or where they exist. Um, but me personally, I don't have any up close and personal experiences. But if other people are having those experiences, uh, are they lucky or are they just a little different? I don't know. But apparently, there's been some occurrences, and other people are fortunate enough to witness these things. I can't say that they're true or false because of the different sightings and the time frames or whatnot. But I would say that there are probably some things out there that occasionally people get the chance to see because of where they are.
That is an incredibly fair statement, and
Mhm.
I like it. Yeah, we live in a world where we just don't know, man. Like
Mhm.
we don't know. But if I think people keep an open mind as to the possibilities of what's out there,
Mhm.
I think we will see more. But we are blinded to the point of where our minds are closed.
Hmm. Interesting. Well put.
So yeah. Now I'm going to put this out there, and then we'll close this out. You want to talk about cryptids? You want to talk about lizard people is another one we didn't even touch on. Holy cow, that might just be part 3. So maybe I'll leave this as a juicy nugget for part 3.
Okay.
Um, investigate the amount of missing persons cases, and they have maps that detail this.
Hmm.
All right, and compare that locationally. So look at a map of missing persons, and they'll give like a little top down view with all the pinpoints of this people here, right?
Hmm.
And then compare it to a map of our cave systems in this country.
Hmm.
And I will just say, look at the comparison, and you may see some coincidences that are eerie.
Wow. Okay.
So we will stop it there, because if we dip into the lizard people thing next,
Hmm.
that's going to take us from the Appalachians to Antarctica and a bunch of other places, and that's going to be a whole other thing,
All
right?
right.
So, all right, man, dude, thank you so much. It was a blast having you on. I love your perspective on these things.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, this was good. And don't forget, real quick shout out, Black Label chronometers. Bam, right there. You can see it real good, real,
Uh-huh.
real good. Right behind me, got me in the doing my little pose on the clock. Ryan Babb does excellent work. Check out Black Label chronometers. myvibe.com. Again, both places, Shank 15. And don't forget, msh.com, meetsohorny.com. Check out their spices. If nothing else, get some of the dark side salt. You will never go back to the light side of the force. I'm telling you, it's good. All right. So for evolution, my name is Sean Shank. This has been Blurred Lines. This is part 2 of this series. Part 3, I guess we're going to be getting into lizard people.
Sounds good. Take care.